She lay there on the narrow bed in the pale glow of the hospital lights. Her eyes closed tight as another contraction rippled through her body, and she gripped the sheets with trembling hands. More years of waiting and praying than she could count had led her here, surrogate mother to two tiny lives stirring deep within her womb. For months, she had carried not just one child, but two, enduring morning sickness and midnight aches, blood tests, and ultrasound appointments. But she had never once doubted the purpose that guided her. She was there to give these babies to their parents, a wealthy couple who had longed for children and could not conceive on their own. The room was quiet, except for the steady beep of the fetal heart monitors and the hushed voices of the nurses. At her side stood Dr. Patel, his brow furrowed with concentration. "I've got twins, Ms. Monroe. It looks like they're ready. A boy and a girl." Relief washed over her. A boy and a girl. What a gift. The nurse checked her chart one more time. "Mr. and Mrs. Anderson will be here any minute." "Good," she whispered, and braced herself as the next surge of pain rolled in. 20 minutes later, the first cry cut through the haze of medicine and exhaustion. A small, vigorous shout, announcing the arrival of her son. Minutes after, a gentle, sweet wail, her daughter making her entrance into the world. Two perfect, healthy babies, wrapped in soft blankets and placed side by side on her chest. Tears filled her eyes as she traced the angelic faces. They were hers only for a moment, and then she would hand them over to the couple who had contracted her services. She touched her son's dark curls, then her daughter's soft cheek. "You're going to be loved," she murmured. But as the nurses bustled around, preparing the babies for their first exams, an uneasy tension filled the air. Dr. Patel glanced at the door. "They're here." A woman in designer scrubs and her husband in a crisp suit swept into the room. They paused at the door, smiles already on their faces as they looked at the new lives before them. "Congratulations," the husband said, his voice tight with excitement. His wife's eyes shone as she approached the bassinet. She reached out, her hand trembling. "They're beautiful," she said, her voice soft. The nurse handed her the baby girl first. She cradled her gently. Then the nurse placed the baby boy in her husband's arms. He held the child awkwardly, like he'd never held a baby in his life. The surrogate watched, her heart full of emotion at the beauty of new life joining the world. Mothers and fathers around the globe dreamed of this moment. The doctor cleared his throat. "Before we finalize any paperwork, there's something you need to know." Their faces flickered with curiosity. "The twins share a rare blood disorder that's asymptomatic now, but can create serious health complications within the first year if not tracked closely. We caught it through routine testing, but the prognosis is uncertain." A gasp from the father. "What does that mean? What kind of complications?" "They may need frequent transfusions, possibly a bone marrow transplant down the line. There's a risk of serious infections, developmental delays." The mother's hand slipped from the girl's blanket as tears brimmed in her eyes. "But you said they were healthy?" she whispered. "They're stable right now, but they'll need intensive care and specialized treatment as soon as they're discharged. The cost could be astronomical." The couple exchanged a look so fast it was nearly imperceptible. Then he nodded. "We're not equipped for that," he said quietly. Shock and horror froze the words on her lips. You can't." "I'm sorry," the mother said, wiping her tears. "We thought we could do this, but the risk is too great. This isn't what we signed up for." "You're refusing them?" "Yes." The words landed like a physical blow. Panic and anger and heartbreak doubled in her chest. How could they turn away infants that they had desperately begged for? How could she bear to watch? The nurses interceded, gently collecting the babies and stabilizing them. A social worker entered, clipboard in hand, her expression grim. "We'll need to start foster care proceedings immediately. The hospital will take temporary guardianship until suitable adoptive parents or relatives are found." The couple turned and left the room without another word. Alone again, she stared at her children as they slept in the bassinets, tiny chests rising and falling. Tears streamed down her face. She had made a promise when she agreed to carry them, to ensure they found a loving home. But never in her wildest dreams did she imagine she'd end up the only person left to fight for them. Later that afternoon, she sat in a quiet corner of the hospital cafeteria, clutching a cup of coffee she hadn't tasted. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number of the adoption agency she'd researched when she first signed the surrogacy contract. "Hello? This is Susan Monroe." "Ms. Monroe, thank you for calling. How can I help?" "I need to make sure these babies go somewhere safe. The biological parents have refused them. I'm worried they'd go to foster care indefinitely. I'd like to adopt them if possible." A pause. "I'm not sure that's allowed under your agreement, Ms. Monroe. I'll have to check." That night in her small apartment, she lit candles for the twins and placed photos of them on her mantel, pictures the nurses had snapped after delivery. She hadn't planned to become a mother herself. Her own children were grown. She'd never considered a second family. But she could not turn away. Days passed. Court hearings, legal battles. The biological parents refused to be served. Attorneys sparred. Each hearing was more draining than the last. Meanwhile, the babies remained in the hospital nursery, under the care of loving nurses who had grown attached to their bright eyes and playful coos. Finally, a judge ruled that Ms. Monroe, as a gestational carrier who had initiated the adoption proceedings, was the most appropriate guardian until a permanent solution was found. The judge's decree granted her temporary custody. Relief and joy washed through her. She rushed to the nursery, where the twins lay side by side. She scooped them into her arms all at once, rocking back and forth as she whispered, "Mommy's here." Life after the hospital was a blur of feedings and diaper changes, doctor's appointments and sleepless nights. She navigated insurance, claims for the twins' specialized care, enrolled them in early intervention programs, and connected with support groups for families affected by their condition. Word of her story spread online and in local media. Donations poured in to help cover medical bills. Volunteers offered babysitting. A corporation with a charitable foundation pledged funds for the twins' long-term treatment. The outpouring of love and generosity buoyed her spirits. By the twins' first birthday, they had grown into thriving toddlers. Her son danced at the pediatric therapy sessions. Her daughter smiled up at her with bright curiosity. Scars of their early trials remained faint reminders of the journey they'd overcome. One sunny afternoon, as they played in her backyard, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Ms. Monroe?" "This is Mr. Anderson." Her heart pounded. She paused the twins' game and answered, "I'm calling to say we're sorry. We were overwhelmed. We panicked. We thought we couldn't handle the risks. But after watching from afar and seeing how well you've cared for them, we realize we abandoned them unjustly." Anger flared in her chest. "I hope you understand. Children are a responsibility we couldn't bear, but you've shown what means to be committed." He hesitated. "Would you consider letting us be part of their lives? Co-parenting, perhaps?" She closed her eyes. She had built a life around these twins. She had become their mother. "I'm their mother," she said firmly. "I have fought for them when you turned away. They need stability. You can visit, you can help, but they live with me." A long silence. "I understand. Thank you." End of conversation. She hung up and looked at her children playing in the grass. No one else carried them, protected them, loved them the way she did. In the months that followed, the Andersons became part of the twins' extended circle. Aunts, uncles, distant relatives cheering them on from the sidelines. But the call to her had been just that, a call to apologize, to seek forgiveness. The real family was the one she had chosen. On a bright morning at her daughter's second birthday party, as balloons bobbed in the spring breeze and children laughed on the lawn, she watched her son chase bubbles and her daughter blow out candles on a tiny cake shaped like a heart. She stood back, allowing herself the rare luxury of joy, and allowed her heart to swell with pride. From the moment she had first carried them inside her, she had dreamed of this day. At the edge of the party, the Andersons approached, bringing a gift wrapped in cheerful paper. The mother's eyes glistened as she knelt beside the birthday girl. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she whispered, offering the gift. The twins' eyes lit up, and for a moment all wounds seemed healed. Because family is not only created by contracts or genetics, it is forged by love, sacrifice, and unwavering devotion. And on that sunny day, surrounded by laughter and cake, that truth shone brighter than any headline ever could.